so happy that you're here. Please worship with us.
We're glad you guys are tuning in tonight, or whenever you guys are watching this. This next song is called "CCvlcty." Wish you sing it with us.
I know battle belongs to you, Lord. I'm gonna see your victory. I'm gonna see your victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. I'm gonna see your victory. I'm gonna see your victory. The battle belongs to you, Lord. I'm gonna see your victory. I'm gonna see your victory. For the battle belongs to you, take what the enemy meant for evil and you turn it for good. You turn it for good. You take what the enemy meant for evil and you turn it for good. You turn it for good. You take what the enemy meant for evil and you turn it for good. You turn it for good. You take what the enemy meant for evil and you turn it for good. You turn it for good. You take what the enemy meant for evil and you turn it for good. You turn it for good. And I'm gonna see your victory. I'm gonna see your victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. And I'm gonna see your victory. I'm gonna see your victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. And I'm gonna see your victory. I'm gonna see your victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. I'm gonna see your victory. I'm gonna see your victory. Yeah. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. You take what the enemy meant for evil and you turn it for good. You turn it for good. You take what the enemy meant for evil and you turn it for good. You turn it for good.
Day and night, God, I'm running to you. All of the dreams that you gave me are all of the things that I'm waking up to. Say the word and I'm ready. Say the word and I'm running to you.
What's up, Velocity? Thanks for joining us on a Wednesday. You could be doing anything, and you're logging on to watch us and hang out with us a little bit, and that truly means the world to us. Hey, if you've never logged on to Velocity or attended Velocity, just a quick heads up, I want you to know this is a very safe place for you. Our student ministry here at Centerpoint is a place where you can bring your questions, you can bring your worries, you can bring things about faith that you're unsure of, and we want to talk through those. And so everything we do is around that idea, is to be a safe place. And so you've clicked onto a right spot regardless of where you are in your faith journey. We're starting a brand new series called In This Together. And over the next just 2 weeks, I want to talk about a topic that I am so deeply passionate about, because I think that if you're listening, this could be one of those things that isn't just going to change your week or your year, that if you can apply what we're going to talk about tonight it can genuinely be life-changing for you. In fact, this is one of those things for me that has gotten me through the toughest times in life and will continue to get me through the tough times in life. It's the topic we're going to talk about that is going to help you in your faith journey. It's going to help you in your relationships. Genuinely, I believe if you will lean in over the next few moments, that what we're going to talk about could be a game changer for you. And I think this is more important than ever, given everything happening with the pandemic, and we're trying to process through a lot right now. And the weird thing is we're trying to process through all that we're going through, and for a lot of us, these are new things that we're experiencing. We're also trying to process isolated and separated. And so we have this weird storm of we're trying to process things, but we're not really around people. And I think that what we're going to talk through, even socially distanced, even separated, can be super, super helpful. And so here's what I want to call it. If you're taking notes, I simply want to title this, Check Your Circle. Check your circle. And I get this from a verse that Paul wrote in the book of Hebrews, or think it's Paul. There's some debate on who actually wrote this, but I'll lean in for just a moment because this is to Christ followers on how we should live, checking our circle. Here's what it says. And let us consider how we may spur one another on toward love and good deeds, not giving up meeting together, as some are in the habit of doing, but encouraging one another, all the more as you see the day approaching. And here's what the writer is explaining in this moment. He's saying, hey, don't forget, don't stop considering how you can spur one another on. In other words, help each other in this life through love. And he says, don't forget to continually meet together. In other words, he's saying the people around you, your circle, constantly be thinking about, constantly be checking who is around you. Guys, I just want to tell you that this is one of those principles that if we will apply to our lives, if we will live lives where we are constantly looking around us and considering the people around us, that this is one of those things that will take your relationship with Jesus, it will take your life to a whole other level. Now you're going, Bradley, this says don't give up meeting together, and right now we're not able to meet together, so why would you pick this verse to encourage us in tonight? And here's what I want to tell you. Obviously the writer didn't have Zoom. They didn't have FaceTime. They didn't have cell phones. They couldn't text each other. And so when he's saying, hey, gather, he's saying, yeah, physically meet together. But I would actually say that today it's more possible than ever to gather. It's more possible than ever to get together with one another because we do have things like Zoom, and we do have things like FaceTime, and we do have things like texting that we can do all the time with our circle. And so I think the writer would be overjoyed at this time in our lives where he would say, yeah, now you can meet together even more frequently than we were able to. And I think that right now in the pandemic, you're seeing that you can actually gather, if you've attempted to, in more ways than you think. And so I don't think this principle changes because of the season that we're in. I think it's actually more important than ever because you're not seeing your circle on the Wednesday night at Velocity, and you're not seeing your circle at school, and you're not seeing your circle at the bus stop. And so I think we need to take the extra step in this season to make sure, like the writer is encouraging us, don't stop meeting together. Continually be checking, constantly be checking and looking at your circle. And so here's what I want to do. I want to walk you through 3 types of people to have in your circle at all times. It's a really simple way just to think about this, and if you can lean in, trust me, I'm always thinking about these 3 people. I am always monitoring my life in different seasons to make sure these 3 types of people are in them. And I think if you do the same, you will just see how this will change everything for you. And so I actually asked some of the people in the room if they would come up and join me. So would you 4 who I mentioned to earlier come up here? I'll move this for just a second. We're going to get interactive up here. We're going to bring some of your leaders on.
I'm sorry.
Hey, real quick, say who you are and what you do at Velocity, and just go down the line.
My name's Sam. I help out with the music.
You see him every week.
Oh, Faith is this good, Jen. I'm Grace Hudson, and I fill the gaps. I don't know, I do worship and help out in the background.
does it all.
I'm Adam Uoth. I'm your intern, student intern.
Hi, I'm Faith. I help with Velocity worship stuff with Sam. So.
I told them they didn't have to talk, and then I made them talk. So okay, here's what we're going to do. Sam, you're going to be my first example, so you'll just kind of step up like right there. Perfect. Okay, so say we're all for just a little bit Sam. Okay, so you watching, you're actually Sam right now. So I'm going to walk Sam through the 3 types of people that he needs to have in his circle at all times. So you are Sam. Got it? You cool with everyone being you?
It's tough for them, but
Okay, perfect. Now, so the first type of person that I always want you to have in your circle is you're constantly checking. You always want to have someone ahead of you. You always want to have someone ahead of you. So here's what I mean by that. Adam, you want to come be ahead of Sam? So you just stand right here in front. Yeah, so by having someone ahead of you, here's what I mean. Maybe Adam has lived a little bit more life than Sam has. Maybe, and again, this is all fictional, so put whoever in here. But let's say, just for the sake of this, that Adam is a little bit older. Maybe he's wiser. Maybe he's tackled some more seasons of life. Maybe he's just literally been ahead of him in different seasons. Maybe he's farther along in his spiritual walk. Maybe he knows a little bit more about the Bible and what God says. And so here's the amazing thing. If you have someone who is ahead of you always, then as you walk through this life, you need someone who you can talk to about situations that you haven't stepped into before. You're coming up on new seasons and you don't know how to process them. If you have someone in your circle who is saying, hey, I'm here for you. I want to help guide you through this. Here's what I learned. Here's the mistakes I've made. That will already, just in that, change your circle. Some of you have these people. Some of you have small group leaders that you go to for things in life who are a little bit farther down the road, a little bit older, a little bit wiser, a little bit farther along faith journeys, and they have been helping you as you've been walking out your relationship with Jesus. So always have someone who's ahead. Now, as you're checking your circle, the second type of person that I want you to have is someone who's beside. Now, I'm going to have Grace come be the person beside, and I don't know, are we out of the frame here?
No, you're good.
Okay, perfect. So now just pretend like they're not married for a second, okay? So they are beside one another. Now, when you have someone who's beside you, this means someone who is in this life with you. They're in this journey. They're kind of going through the same things that you're going through. And this is someone that you can lean on as you're walking through stuff. Too often, we tend to get isolated because maybe we have someone ahead of us. We don't have anyone who's got our back. Anyone who's beside us figuring this out as we go along. So something hits us at school and we have no one to lean on or look to as we figure this out. So you need to have people, I would say 1 to 2 at least, who are beside you. Now I'm going to go into a little bit more details on some of the things that you should look for in these people. But just for this, you have someone beside. And then Faith, if you want to step back here, Faith is going to represent, now she's like way back here, so you're going to have to like peek your head so people can see you. She's going to represent a third type of person that you need to have, and this is someone who's behind you. Here's the Christian walk. We are not just meant to have someone ahead of us and beside us, but God actually wants to use you. Because the truth is, you're actually ahead of somebody. You figured out something in faith. You have some experiences. Even if you're a 6th grader listening, you have more life experience than maybe your younger sibling, or maybe a 5th grader at school, because they haven't transitioned to middle school yet. And so there are things that God has shown you and done in your life. Listen, students, I talk to students all the time who feel like they can't be used by God because they don't have enough experience, or they're going to wait till one day to be used. And let me just tell you, wherever you're at, you can be used by God in this moment. And so I think you should be looking for people who are behind you, who you can pour into, who you can be there for, who you can help guide. Now, here's the cool thing. And sometimes when we have more people here, I like to have someone on this side as well. But look at Sam right now. Sam is surrounded by people. He has a circle of people around him. And so when life comes, when difficulty comes, when maybe temptation comes, when tough seasons come, he is surrounded by a group of people. And it is going to be so much more difficult for him to be taken out because he's checked his circle. Just do me a favor and give it up for these guys. I know you're at home, but you guys can have a seat. Thank you so much for helping me do that. Listen, guys, this is so important. And I just think that if you will right now take the time to evaluate, do I have a circle around me like that? Do I have at least those 3 people? Now, what I'm not saying is that that's your whole world and that's where you stop. You need other types of relationships, absolutely. But we always need to look and make sure those 3 spots are filled. Now, here's the kind of people that I think you need to place in those spots. Because if you're looking for, hey, what kind of person needs to be ahead of me, beside me, and behind me, here are some things to look through. I want to give you 3 words that kind of can classify or define the types of people you want to make sure are in those spots in your circle. The first one is you want someone who is safe. You want someone who is safe, because here's what's important. You want someone who is agreeing to love you, to care for you, to be there for you, and someone who is ready to have a safe, open, vulnerable dialogue without judgment, without shame. So you need a mentor in front of you, a small group leader who has said to you, hey, I'm here for you. And listen, I've made mistakes too, and I'm going to be a sounding board. And when you have safe people around you, this allows you, when something tough happens, to not be afraid of speaking up, because this circle is for that. You've got to have people that you can come to with everything, to be fully known and fully loved. That's when your circle will work. And so I want to encourage you, find safe people who you can trust one another, who you can lean on, and you can honestly be open about even the junk in your life. You've got to have people like that. Too often we try and skip over this because it's tough to be vulnerable. It's tough to open ourselves up to other people. But I just want to tell you, if you have a mentor who you can't be open with, it's not actually a mentorship. And they're not really going to be able to help you. And so you're going to have a surface level relationship, but if you want the kind of circle that's going to change your relationship with Jesus, your walk in this life, you've got to have safe people. Second thing to look for are people who are encouraging. People who are going to lift you up, who are going to speak life into you, who are going to help push you forward. This is super important when you're looking at people beside you, because there are too many people who, instead of wanting to help you, they want to compete with you. And they want to say biting comments and post things on social media and do things that are manipulative or hurtful to you. Can I just tell you, I'm not saying that there's not a place for those people in your circle. I'm not saying that just because someone is a little toxic or tries to undermine you that you should just cut them out of your life. I'm not saying that. But I am saying that you need to have a couple of people who are beside you who are not toxic, who are not trying to hurt you, who are not trying to win over you, who are just there for you, to help, to lift you up, to push you forward. And you need those people around you. And then the third, I don't really have a better word for this, so I'm going to say godly. But here's what I mean. That's not a weird Bible term. When I say godly, I mean people who are pursuing after the Lord. I'm not saying that you shouldn't have other people in your circle who aren't believers, who believe something different than you, who are on a different journey. Not saying that at all. But I am saying that you need to have at least these 3 people who are pursuing what you're pursuing. Because too often we want to chase after what God's doing in our life and pursue Jesus and be on this walk of faith. But if we have only people around us who are pursuing different things, we are never going to be pushed forward in the direction that we need to go. As the writer put it, we won't be spurred on toward love in the direction that God has for us. And so look for these 3 people who are godly, who are pursuing a relationship with Jesus. So I would encourage you, look around at your circle. Do you have all of these 3 in place? And if you don't, even look at some of the people next to you. Do you have another Christian believer who is helping you in your walk with Christ next to you? Is it all just people at your school who believe super differently? Again, that's amazing to have friendships with them. But what if you had some other people who are helping you move in the direction that God had for you? I think it's super, super important to find these people, make sure they're safe, encouraging, and godly. I just think if you have one of these pieces missing, you're opening yourself up. You're not surrounded, you're not fully circled. And so check constantly your circle, because these seasons will change. As you move maybe, or you change schools, or you grow older, you're going to see where gaps are. And I would just encourage you, check them constantly. Always be looking. Do I have these 3 people around me? Now, here's something I didn't put on that list. What I didn't put on that list is to make sure someone is exactly the same as you. And I'm going to hit on this a little bit more next week as we talk about what it looks like when community and groups get a little messy, because they're always messy. Just look out. But I didn't say you need someone who is exactly like you, who has all the same opinions as you do. Because I think that as we can do community along other people who maybe have differing opinions, maybe can call you on your stuff and actually speak up because you do see things differently, I think that's when we really grow together. I think that's when you will really see the body of Christ and community begin to work alongside each other, because we will have differing opinions, we will have different thoughts, we will be in different seasons of life, and yet we can learn from one another. And so I just know this has happened to you if you've come to a group before, if you've been in any kind of small group setting. And again, I'm going to talk about this more next week, so I'm trying not to go too much into it. But you've probably looked around the people and thought, they're weird, they don't like the same music as I do, they don't dress like me, and so I'm out. And can I just encourage you that if that's the group you're looking at, if they're different than you, good. Because they all represent different pieces of the image of who God is, of the image of Christ. And so if we can begin to leverage those different relationships and those differences and do life alongside one another, you might discover that you have something to learn from people who are not like you. And so I just want to say, do not give up on the group because they're different. In fact, maybe you should lean in more than ever before. Again, I said I wasn't going there, but I did anyway, so that was for free. I'm going to dive into a lot of that next week. But I want to leave you with one more thing. I'm going to ask the worship team to come back out here. But I want to talk about for a second how isolation is so damaging. And right now, maybe you're experiencing this because in some ways we're forced to be isolated. And you haven't been around people, and you haven't been making it a priority to hop on a Zoom group or connect with some other people. You've been missing that person ahead of you, those people beside you, and that person behind you. And can I just want to say that being in isolation, although it's easy, it's our default, it can be comfortable, it is not God's best. You were not called to do this life alone. He loves you too much for that. And so if you're looking around at the chaos in our world, the chaos in your family, the chaos in your own household, and you're thinking, I'm alone and I'm stuck in this, just know that you do not have to be. In fact, that's why we do everything that we do here at Velocity. It's why we're going to continue to build an environment around a group, because look at a group. You have a leader, someone who is ahead of you, someone who is older, someone who is a little bit wiser, someone who's walked through some more seasons, and they are saying, I'm going to give up every Wednesday night to pour into these students, to give what I have, to share my experience, even my mistakes, because I'm safe, and I'm encouraging, and I'm pursuing after the Lord with them. And then we're going to put you around other people your age in your schools going through the same things that you're going through. And we're going to talk about how a group is a safe space to share, to talk through, to encourage one another, and to pursue after Jesus. And then we're going to give you opportunities to serve. And because there are people behind you who need what God has given you, and so we're going to give you opportunities to pour that out into others. Everything we do is to help you check your circle and to build in a necessary surrounding of how God has created us to live. And so here's a couple of things I want you to do this week. If you're thinking, hey, how do I do this? How do I begin to check my circle? I'm going to say two things. They are very, very simple, but yet we just never do them. The first thing I want you to do is seek it out. Seek it out. Too often I hear, well, I don't have a mentor or anyone who's ahead of me, and that, no one's asked me that yet. Don't wait for someone to ask you that. Yes, begin to pray that God would bring that person, that He will show you someone. But also, we have that here at Velocity. We have people who are ready to be your mentor, to help guide you, to help lead you. And so seek those people out. Talk to someone. If you know a wise Christian who's a little bit ahead of the road at church, or someone that you just know in your circle, would you just say, hey, could you help me? Could you be a safe place for me? Would you mentor me? I guarantee you there are people who are ready to say yes to that question. So seek out those people. Maybe there's someone in your small group who you guys got along really well, but you haven't seen each other in 3 months, and you need to text that person. Seek it out. and say, hey, will you be someone who's beside me in this life? Here's what I'm processing through. Here's my worries. Here's my fears. Here's my insecurities. Can we talk even though we're separated for these 3 months? Because I need someone who's beside me in this life. Seek it out. And the second thing I want you to do, even more simple, but we don't do this one for sure, schedule it. Schedule it. If you want to make these relationships a priority, you have to put them on the calendar, an actual, literal calendar. So this means text your small group leader and say, hey, can we talk on Monday? Text that person in your group and say, hey, tomorrow, can we FaceTime? And begin to schedule in this time. Here's why this is important. Normally I would say just come every Wednesday and we've got all this handled for you. It's on the schedule, but right now we can't do that. And so tune in Wednesday and then text those people and say, hey, Bradley talked to me about this, and what do you think, and where's your head at, and begin to schedule these things out. Now listen, student, I just want you to know that all of us in the room, even though everyone you saw come up and do the illustration, and then so many who are watching right now because they can't be here but are invested in this ministry, we are here for you. This is why we get so excited to do everything that we do at Velocity, is because we just want to say, listen, we want to be those people, those mentors, those safe, encouraging spaces where you can come and you can ask your questions and you can walk through this journey together. And we do this because we have discovered life in Jesus. I wish I could go through, and we probably will at some time, and all of us share a bit of our testimony of what God has done in our lives. But the truth is, in simple terms, we were pursuing after things that we could find fulfillment in and happiness, and nowhere we looked could fulfill it. Because we had a hole in our heart that only Jesus could fulfill. And what Jesus did on the cross is take our place. He stopped this striving to become more like God, and yet he came down to us to trade places with us. So I want you to know, student, if you're carrying shame, if you're carrying guilt, if you recognize how messed up you are, can I just say you're not alone? That we are truly all in this together, and Jesus has made a way for you. He has done what you could not. He is ready tonight to take away your guilt, take away your shame, and make you a new creation. And to start this journey that you are not alone on, of deciding and figuring out what it looks like to follow after him with everything. That's what we are here for. And so if you have logged on, it is not coincidence. If you are watching this because someone shared it with you, it is not coincidence. That there is a God who is for you and he loves you in spite of your mess, in spite of your mistakes. And tonight he is reaching through this screen, wherever you're at, to say that he loves you. And I just want to ask, if you want to start a relationship with him, you can speak that out to him. You can pray to him. You can literally just say, God, I know I'm a wreck. I know Jesus came to save me. I want life in him. And that's it. And I would love to continue that conversation. If you will DM us, we would love to talk with you more about what that looks like. But just don't pass up this opportunity, because maybe God is speaking to you. As I'm going to pray for us, I want to pray for those who have just accepted this amazing relationship that Jesus offers, and also for those of us who need to make sure we're checking our circle and just don't know where to start. Can I pray for us real quick? God, I thank you that it's not coincidence that we're watching. That right now, all over the place, you are speaking and moving in our hearts. You always know exactly what we need, and you're doing that tonight. God, I thank you for the ones who are starting that relationship by crying out to you tonight. Would you show them that they are forgiven, that they are made new, that they are set free, that there is no more weight of sin and shame and guilt, that you have taken it all. And God, I pray for all of us on this journey that we would look around our circle, and that if we're missing one of these three, that you would help us find it. That even in miraculous ways, we would get a text by someone who wants the same thing we do, and God, that you would just place these people in our lives. I thank you for Velocity. I thank you that it's a place that we can do this. It's your name I pray. Amen. really quick before I go, I just kind of want to tease out something that we're trying to figure out right now. But as you know, things are starting to open back up a little bit more. And as a church, we're releasing phases that you've probably seen as Centerpoint and what we're doing to take steps that direction. And so in the next couple of weeks, what we'd like to do, provided everything kind of keeps going the way that it's going, is that we want to make groups in person again. So we want to allow for you to literally meet together once again, to gather to do this all a little bit differently. And so we are working hard on that, and I want you to know that hopefully within a couple of weeks we will be at that phase. And so I just want you to know that, to be thinking about that, to be praying about that. And next week I hope to have a lot more details on exactly what that'll look like, and kind of flesh a lot of this out. But just know that it's coming. I didn't want to leave without saying that. So if you're like, man, I really wish we could really see this happen, it's coming. Okay, and so we're so excited that you're part of Velocity at this time. I'm going to get off the stage, and I'm going to give it to these guys. Do not log off, because trust me, you will want to hear this song.
So unusual, it's frightening. You see right through the mess inside me, and you call me out to pull me in and tell me I can start again. And I don't need to keep on hiding. I'm fully known and loved by you. You won't let go, no matter what I do. And it's not one or the other. It's all truth and ridiculous grace to be known, fully known and loved by you. Fully known and loved by you. It's so like you to keep pursuing. It's so like me to go astray. Oh, but you got my heart with the truth, the kind of love that's bulletproof. And I surrender to your kindness. I'm fully known and loved by you. You won't let go, no matter what I do. And it's not one or the other. It's all truth and ridiculous grace to be known, fully known and loved by you. Fully known and loved by you. How real, how wide, how rich, how high is your heart? How can I find the reasons why you give me so much? How real, how wide, how rich, how high is your heart? How can I find the reasons why you give me so much? I'm fully known and loved by you. You won't let go, no matter what I do. And it's not one or the other. It's all truth and ridiculous grace to be known, fully known and loved by you. I'm fully known and loved by you. It's so unusual, it's frightening. I'm fully known and loved by you.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Make sure to stay tuned with us throughout the week, and we'll see